destroy St. Mungo's on the morning of August 1st.
Harry's eyes rose.
You were the one who talked him out of it.
Snape nodded.
I, along with 2 others, we persuaded the Dark Lord that murdering dozens of children and infants, and possibly hundreds of other wizards and witches at the nation's only hospital, would turn the opinion of a still divided wizarding Britain against us. Indeed, without knowing the full prophecy, it was possible that the mysterious power to vanquish the Dark Lord might refer to the symbolic power that the memory of a murdered child might have in shaping public opinion irrevocably against him. It was a highly improbable interpretation, but it was just plausible enough to deter the Dark Lord from attacking St. Mungo's. Shortly thereafter, he focused his attention exclusively on you 2 and on Jim Potter, as all 3 of you were to be born at the end of July, and as far as the Dark Lord was concerned, all 4 of your parents had defied him 3 times. It was at that point that I contacted Dumbledore, urged him to send the Potters and Longbottoms into hiding, and agreed to spy on the Dark Lord on Dumbledore's behalf.
Did you know that Barty Crouch Jr. was a Death Eater?
Asked Neville. Only a slight tightening of his fingers around the arms of his chair alerted Harry to how nervous Neville was to ask the question.
Not until his arrest. The Death Eaters worked in cells, wore voice-altering masks while doing the Dark Lord's work, and always used code names. I obtained a position as the Dark Lord's potions expert, which meant I never went on raids and rarely interacted with Death Eaters on a personal level outside of those I already knew. Everyone whose identity I uncovered through spying I reported to Dumbledore. There is very little else I can say about that without contravening secrecy oaths I made to the headmaster. And before you ask, Mr. Potter, no, I did not know that Sirius Black was a Death Eater either. In fact, I was quite astonished to learn of it. While I found him to be a despicable man, I had always believed Black to be an implacable foe of the Death Eaters.
What was your code name?
Asked Harry. Snape suppressed a smirk. Of course, that would be the sort of cloak and dagger silliness that would intrigue the Slytherin Potter.
I was Mr. Aconite.
He replied. Harry nodded with a slight amusement. Naturally. Then he looked over at Neville.
That's all I have, sir.
Longbottom said.
I appreciate your candor.
The boy spoke easily, without either anger or guile. Snape blinked repeatedly.
That's all, Mr. Longbottom.
He asked, somewhat nonplussed. Neville nodded.
You made a mistake, but after you realized it, you did what you could to make it better. And you never knew about my cousin Barty, who was the only one who could have led the other Death Eaters through the Longbottom wards to attack my parents. None of what happened to my parents was your fault beyond the simple fact of Barty and the Lestranges knowing that you know who was interested in me, and you did what you could to fix that. I don't see any cause to bear ill will against you, sir.
Snape blinked some more before, finally composing himself enough to speak.
Mr. Longbottom, you remind me very much of your father. I believe that is one of the highest compliments I am capable of giving.
Thank you, sir.
The boy replied softly.
I did have a few more questions.
Said Harry.
I'm not sure that you can answer them if you're under oaths, but if you don't mind, I'd still like to ask.
Snape nodded.
The first one is about last Thursday. Did you or any of the other teachers know what all the traps were or how to disarm them?
Snape was surprised at the change of topic and somewhat bemused at Harry's transition from wronged child to seasoned investigator. He remembered how the boy had deduced the Dark Lord's involvement with Quirrell from a startlingly small number of clues, and he was once again curious as to the boy's thought processes.
No, each of us knew how to disarm only the traps we personally designed. The trapdoor in the room guarded by the Cerberus was actually a magical construct leading to wizard space.
He noticed the boy's confusion.
Wizard space is a term of art relevant to spatial expansion and manipulation charms. You will study it in 7th year if you pursue a charms newt. Each professor designed the trap in an individual room of their own choosing, which was then shrunk down to the size of a small box. When he was ready to prepare the gauntlet in its entirety, the headmaster assembled the modular boxes and expanded them back again, which explains how you could have a trap door in the floor of a third floor room that does not connect to an opening in the ceiling of the adjacent second floor room.
When were the individual traps completed and turned over to the headmaster?
Most of them over the course of last summer, although the final room was not completed until December due to outside forces beyond our control.
Snape noticed that Harry seemed surprised at that.
Why is this relevant, Mr. Potter?
I'm not sure anymore in light of your last answer, but my next question may help explain it. That is, if it's one you're permitted to answer. The plan, according to the headmaster, was to lead Quirrell through a gauntlet of traps to both confuse him and lull him into a false sense of security, so that when he found the mirror, you know who would be drawn into it and destroyed.
Harry took a deep breath.
To the best of your knowledge, was that really the actual plan?
The question clearly confused Snape.
You've lost me, Potter. What other plan do you think there could have been?
The boy took another, even deeper breath before diving in headfirst.
I was thinking of perhaps a plan by the headmaster to engineer a direct confrontation between you-know-who and Jim Potter, so that the former could be destroyed completely by the latter's mysterious, vanquishing power.
Snape stared at the boy for several seconds as he thought through the implications of that statement.
Mr. Potter, I cannot imagine what you are talking about. No one could have anticipated the manner in which the Dark Lord would figure out our objective and confund your brother and his friends into meeting him in the mirror room. Now tell me what it is you are thinking.
Harry stared at Snape as if trying to gauge his trustworthiness. Eventually, he decided that if he couldn't trust Snape at this point, there was literally no one over the age of 11 that he could trust, so he might as well go for it.
Room 1, a three-headed dog that falls asleep if you play music around it. A fact made known to Jim Potter by Rubeus Hagrid right around the time Hagrid gave Jim a flute as a Christmas present. Room 2, a devil's snare which Neville identified merely by its scent even before entering the room and which he disabled easily. Room 3, an absurdly overcomplicated aerial trap which could only be overcome by someone with the specific skill set of a talented Quidditch seeker. Room 4, a giant chessboard which I am told Ron Weasley beat in just 12 moves. Room 5, a troll that Neville and Hermione had already helped incapacitate once before. Room 6, a logic puzzle that Hermione solved in less than a minute, and a potion that only allowed one person to proceed to the final room at a time. Frankly, sir, it looks very much like the gauntlet was designed for the particular skills and specialties of Jim Potter, and the 3 Gryffindors most likely to accompany him on his adventure.
Snape's face turned into an emotionless mask, which strangely reassured Harry more than if he'd registered shock instead. With whom have you discussed this theory?
Blaise and Theo, we all noticed it while making our own way through the gauntlet. Hermione figured it out the next day once she was no longer under the confundus and had time to think about things, and she told Neville. None of us have discussed it with Jim, Ron, or anyone else.
He did not mention that everyone who knew his theory had made their own independent plans for recovering the information in the event they were obliviated. Snape nodded.
Tell no one of this. I will investigate the matter. When you describe the situation as you have, I admit I find it troubling as well. That said, while the coincidence is startling, I know for a fact that Professor McGonagall submitted her room to the headmaster weeks before the start of school at a time when no one knew that Weasley was a chess prodigy, or even that Weasley and the other Potter would strike up a friendship. Likewise, I submitted my own room around the same time before I even knew who Miss Granger was. Still, I will definitely look into this matter. Is there anything else?
Harry grimaced. His last question might, he feared, be a bridge too far.
One final thing, sir. You mentioned earlier that you were very surprised at Sirius Black being a Death Eater. I know you have a history with the man and have as much reason to hate him as you do my father. That said, is there any possibility, no matter how remote you might think it now, that Sirius Black is an innocent man?
5 seconds later, Harry and Neville were out the door, running as fast as they could, for fear the irate Snape would hex them into the next century.